Hey folks, welcome to Book Chatter. I am your host Stacia Cochran, and we have an outstanding panel of authors with us tonight. I'm absolutely thrilled to have with us on the line Stacia, Kane, Simon Wood, my co-host Holly Christine, and R.J. Keller, and Jackie Kessler. Thank you all for joining us on Book Chatter tonight.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Hi, Jackie.
Well, I should start by saying thank you all for tuning in. It looks like we have about 22, 23 listeners as we're speaking, and I would ask anybody who's watching the show on Ustream to consider going over to Twitter, tweeting that you're watching the show. We're going to be going live for the next hour, so you can get the word out about some of your favorite authors here. So feel free to head over to Twitter and tweet that you're watching us at Ustream on Book Chatter. What I'd like to do is first start by just kind of doing a roundtable introduction. You guys can kind of tell us a little bit about your books before we dig into some of this controversy sort of brewing around Harlequin. So Simon, why don't you get us started? Tell us a little bit about your background, the kind of books that you write, and a couple of the titles of your novels.
My name's Simon Wood. I've been writing about 10, 11 years. I have 4 novels out, 2 short story collections, a couple of novellas, and actually a non-fiction book. I tend to write sort of like Hitchcock kind of thrillers, usually about the man who knew too little, who walks into the wrong situation at the right time. And I also write supernatural horror, which is another branch of me, which is in different things. And now I've actually split off with a pen name called Simon Janus to deal with my horror leanings. But the 2 recent novels have been We All Fall Down and Paying the Piper. And at the moment I'm actually doing my backlist as ebooks right now. And I just brought out Dragged in the Darkness and Working Stick.
Well, I definitely want to talk about that last statement about getting to bringing your backlist into ebooks, but let's hold off on that. I definitely want to get to that later on, though, Simon. Thank you very much for joining us. Jackie Kessler, tell us a little bit about your background, the kind of books that you write, and a couple of your novels.
Sure. Well, I sold my first novel in 2005, and that was a paranormal romance / urban fantasy called Hell Cells, and I sold that to Kensington along with 2 other books. And since then, I write paranormal romance, erotic romance, dark fantasy, urban fantasy, and starting next year, young adult novels too. The books in the Hell on Earth series include Hell Spells, The Road to Hell, and Hotter Than Hell. Yes, there is a theme there. I also co-authored with Caitlin Kittredge a dystopian superhero novel called Black and White, and that was published by Ballantine Spectra, and the sequel, Shades of Grey, comes out next year. And my first young adult novel will be published under the name Jackie Morris Kessler, and that's coming out from Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Graphia Books, and that's called Hunger. And that's, I guess, more magical realism. It's about an anorexic teenage girl who becomes the new famine of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And that's a hard-hitting look at eating disorders, and I'm actually donating a portion of proceeds to the National Eating Disorders Association. And it's an awesome book.
It sounds fantastic. I definitely want to talk, Jackie, a little bit about the difference in some of the choices that you make as a writer when writing for an adult audience and writing for a YA audience. But first, let's get around the table, make sure everybody gets introduced. For the folks watching at home, Simon Wood was the first up. He's the author of numerous awesome suspense novels. We just heard a little bit from Jackie Kessler, who has a bunch of great novels as well. Let's hear from Stacia Kane next. Stacia, tell us a little bit about your background, experience, and a couple of your novels as well.
Hi. I started out actually in erotic romance, e-publishing with Dolores Cave under a different pen name. And now I write a kind of semi-light-hearted romantic urban fantasy series, the Megan Chase books for Juno Pocket. There are 2 books out in that series so far, Personal Demons and Demon Inside, and the 3rd book, Demon Possessed, comes out February 23rd. And then I have a new series that I'm really excited about, very dark urban fantasy. It's about ghosts and drug addicts and ghettos and punk rock and I really love it. And that comes out from Del Rey, the first book on Holy Ghosts, May 25th, the second book June 22nd, and the third July 27th.
So as you can hear, folks,
Awesome.
so as you can hear, folks, we have some outstanding authors with us. I'm absolutely honored, thrilled to have you guys joining us. I should introduce my regular co-hosts as well, R.J. Keller and Holly Christine. Holly, how are you doing this week? What's new in your world?
I'm fine, thank you. Nothing too much new over here. I've been working on a project. I'm starting a writers group in my area. I live just south of Pittsburgh, and I've been working on that and creating a new website, and that's pretty much it on this side of things.
Tell me a little bit about this writers group that you're starting. What's that all about?
Well, I did a reading at my library, and one of the people that came to the event came up to me. She was a writer, and she said, do you belong to any writers groups? And I didn't find one that I quite fit into in the area, so she had felt the same exact way, so we decided to band together. Her name's Sandy Ward Bell, and create our own writers group, and we're working on the website and making it so the Pittsburgh writers can meet up and know what's going on in the area locally.
Sounds very exciting. If there's any way I can help you out with that, let me know, maybe after the show or something. So, RJ, how are you doing? What's new in your world this week?
Well, we're all recovered from the swine flu, and which is good. But also, Waiting to Spring got a really good review at Pod People. It was posted today, so I'm really excited about that.
I am happy to hear you're over the swine flu. We have definitely had. It's been a sick month. Or month or two here in Raleigh. I've got a 3-year-old, and he just seems to catch everything that's floating around out there. So.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah.
That's what kids do.
Yeah, my daughter and I and my husband have all been sick repeatedly over the last month and a half.
Hey, I don't know what it is, man. It's just something floating around in the air. I think it's the ozone layer, but I don't want to get into that right this moment. I do want to thank everybody for tuning in. It looks like we have almost 40 viewers. And I should say, if you're watching the show and you've got questions, we do have an instant message live chat going on. You should be able to see the feature or the icon, the hypertext link for clicking on that. And if you have questions, I try to keep my eye on that while I'm doing the show, so you can ask a question there of any of our panelists. Well, let's dig right into it. Jackie, why don't you sort of preface or give us the background on what this controversy about Harlequin trying to adopt a self-publishing imprint is all about. You wrote about it very eloquently on your blog. So fill our viewers in, our listeners in on this controversy.
Well, thank you. Well, Harlequin partnered with Author Solutions to create what they call a self-publishing venture. But I actually say that it's not self-publishing; it's actually vanity publishing. And what they're doing with this is Harlequin is it has this new imprint. It has this new imprint, and it is encouraging people. Let me backtrack. I'm sorry. What's going on is it is encouraging. It is telling people about the service that they and Author Solutions are offering, and the way that they are doing this is through their website by offering a link to Harlequin Horizons, as well as in their rejection letters to authors who get rejected by Harlequin. There's a line in the rejection letters that is mentions Harlequin Horizons as a possibility for them. And the reason why this is a big deal is this is not just another publishing, not just another business model. What this is doing is encouraging authors to, instead of trying to hone their craft and get better as authors so that they can eventually sell a manuscript and get paid for their work, it is instead encouraging authors to go ahead and pay to get their book printed through this vanity press. And while self-publishing is certainly an option that is feasible for a number of authors. The complication here is in a couple of ways. Number one, Harlequin, by putting its name on the press, it makes it sound like these authors would then be Harlequin authors, when in fact they're not. Harlequin has said specifically the name Harlequin would not appear on the book. The books actually would not appear in the bookstore next to Harlequin books. They wouldn't appear in the bookstore at all. But by lending its name to the press, it makes it sound like the authors are going to be Harlequin authors. That's not true. The second thing is, I just lost my train of thought. I actually want to just mention that Harlequin has backpedaled and said that they are, in fact, going to take their name off of this venture. They haven't said what the new name will be. Maybe it'll just be Horizons. But the big problem remains that Harlequin is encouraging authors to use Harlequin Horizons services by linking to the Vanity Press on its website and suggesting that in its rejection letters that authors go ahead and consider Harlequin Horizons. Basically, your manuscript was not good enough for Harlequin to pay you for your work, but your work is good enough for you to pay Harlequin for it. And that's actually a really big conflict of interest over there.
Well, it definitely sounds like it. You might see me kind of smiling. I'm not laughing at the conversation here. We actually have a very sort of juvenile conversation going on the instant message chat, which if folks are watching and they want to check out what's going on the instant message chat, I guarantee you, Razor Hawk will make you laugh. So Jackie is explaining a little bit of this of the controversy behind Harlequin adopting a self-publishing imprint. And it's made the rounds on the blogs.
There's actually two things. There's two things I just want to throw in there really quick.
Sure.
The reason why I'm saying this is a vanity press and not self-publishing is in self-publishing, authors get to keep 100% of the profits, as well they should, because they pay for everything up front. But in a vanity press, that's not the case. The publisher actually keeps the majority of the profits, along with the author actually ponying up all the upfront costs. And that is a huge difference right there. And another difference is that in self-publishing, the author actually owns the ISBN. And in vanity publishing, they don't. So those are two really important points that authors need to keep in mind.
So, Simon, what's your take on this?
Well, actually, I know that Harlequin's actually got a second arm to this self-publishing thing, which is the thing where they're actually asking if they do reject you, or if you, in general, just want to send a manuscript to them, you can pay for editing services and then take it to the Vanity Press, which is the other half of what's going on right now at Harlequin. Because I got an email through Mystery Writers of America about it, saying how they said, basically this sort of like the Vanity Press side, but more importantly, the paying for the editing services goes against what this sort of like approved publisher list is, and goes against with something that they agree to a statement. They sign a statement saying we do not charge for editing services. So now Mystery Writers America has issued them like a respond by December something if you're going to continue this, or we're going to take you off the approved publishers list, which hurts their authors who want their books sort of like kept in the system, but also if they want them nominated for Edgars.
Well, yeah, I think one of the things that was so shocking to me was and it probably shouldn't have been shocking, but it was, the response from MWA as well as RWA, and how quick that response was, and then how Harlequin...
NSFWA.
And NSFWA, and how quick Harlequin was to change their practice. It sounds like the status of it right now is that they're still going to go ahead by having a self-publishing imprint. They're just not going to use the brand name Harlequin. Is that how you guys understand it, Stacia?
It is to a certain degree. They are keeping their vanity press. They are simply taking the name Harlequin off of it. And unfortunately, that is still unacceptable. They are still misleading authors. They are still telling them in rejection letters that well, we're not going to pay you, but guess what? You can still be a Harlequin author if you want to shell out several $1,000s to us. It's still pretty sleazy. Taking the name off of it does not change the actual practice. They're still soliciting naive, possibly. I wouldn't say that all writers who submit to Harlequin are naive. That's far from the truth. But, you know, a good portion of them would be, just like a good portion of the writers who submit to every other publisher. So it's still basically preying on these people what it does is by putting the Harlequin stamp of approval on a vanity press like this, whether they're calling it Harlequin Horizons or just Horizons or whatever it is they come up with it, they're still, in essence, saying to these new writers, some of whom really look up to Harlequin and think of Harlequin as, you know, the publisher who provides their favorite books and all of this. They're saying to these people that paying to be published is a normal thing to do, a good thing to do, and something that, you know, is a step in the right direction towards commercial publishing, and it is not.
For folks
So
listening
taking the name off the imprint is a good step, but it's only a first step. It's still completely unacceptable.
For folks listening at home, you're listening to that Stacia Kane. We have, as you can see on the screen, a couple of great authors with us tonight: Jackie Kessler, Stacia Kane, Simon Wood, and of course I'm joined by my co-hosts Holly Christine and R.J. Keller. It just seems like we could talk about this for quite a while. I'm really fascinated by the response. Do you think, again, I want to have the guests kind of weigh in on this, do you think that if Harlequin was doing a self-publishing business model, kind of modeled on Lulu's, where there is a no-fee option, if there was a no-fee option that an author could upload a book at no fee and be able to print it and basically operate as a printer, if Harlequin was doing that, would RWA and MWA respond as strongly against something like that? What do you think?
If I can go first.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's an interesting point, because I know obviously MWA had that agreement with like Lightning Source a couple of years ago, but it still feels like that thing of like, oh, well, they could reject every submission now, and it could be the whole thing, well, we're going to reject everybody and make everybody go self-publishing, whether there's an upfront fee or not. And that would be the interesting thing. I think now there's if you like, a black mark over it, it makes you wonder what the motivations are. And so that's the sort of like worrying thing.
Well, I think it's a great point. Go ahead, Jackie.
This is a great way for Harlequin to basically make money off of its slush pile. It's not so much that they're offering a way for authors to, quote, self-publish, unquote. It's the way in which they're going about advertising this service and encouraging authors to use this service by putting this ad for Horizons in its rejection letters and by having a link on its website. It's crossed the line from simply offering a self-publishing print option to encouraging authors to go ahead and do this. And professional authors know that money flows toward the author. We get paid to actually write our books. This is actually how it's usually done. That's what traditional presses do. Traditional publishers, do. And to subtly encourage the very notion that, you know what, instead of working to become stronger authors so that we publishers will pay you for your book, and, by the way, also edit it for free, work with you to tell a better story for free, market it, promote it, print it, warehouse it, and distribute it for free, because that's part of why they're buying your books from you. Instead of encouraging that, instead they're saying, you know what, forget that. Your book wasn't good enough for us to buy it from you, but instead go ahead, don't be a better author. Why don't you go ahead, print it yourself? That's the better way to go, and we're, by the way, going to make a profit off of you for it.
See, I differ a little bit. Two points that I want to make very quickly. The first one is that Harlequin just announced an e-publishing imprint, and I think it's a real shame that they're not focusing more on that. And I think it's very interesting that that they're doing that. Which I actually had a point that I was going to make with that, and I've totally forgotten what it was. So never mind that. To move on, the thing is I actually think if they had wanted to do something, because there are a lot of people out there who believe in self-publishing along the Lulu model, and that's what they want to do because they want to have that control. And it struck me while all this was happening that if Harlequin had done that, if they had said, we're going to partner with Lulu and we're going to have a special Harlequin Lulu shop for self-published books, we're not going to push it to our rejected writers, we're not going to push it to our writers at all, but it will be the place for people who want to read self-published romance novels. I would not really have so much of an issue with that. I actually think
completely transparent.
Yeah, exactly. It would be completely transparent. And I actually think that would have been a very good idea.
Well,
because I think a lot of people who want to self-publish would have gone with that because they would be given at least some share of Harlequin's audience. But as Jackie said, it would be completely transparent. They wouldn't be misleading anyone. They wouldn't be saying to them, oh, you can still be a Harlequin author if you pay us, or implying that these people can buy their way in to being commercially published, or that if their book sells a lot, Harlequin will take it on, or any of the other untruths and half-truths that they've been spreading. So I think it's a real shame that they went with a vanity press model for this and partnered with a company like Author Solutions instead of doing something honest.
I should be forthright and let everybody know that my books have been self-published and they've been doing exceptionally well. They're international bestsellers on Kindle and have been for the past 5 or 6 months. And so I see the value in self-publishing. I think the point that you're raising, Jackie, that if they adopted a kind of Lulu model, I don't think RWA or MWA would be very happy with that because it strikes at the very core of the business model that really has paid you guys to survive and give you books, and so I think it would be a bit of a threat. I do think though that it would be extremely far-sighting if a publisher did that. I see as one of the number one challenges, one of the number one problems that publishers have, and this is just my opinion, but I've been around the business a long time, and one of the number one things that I see as a problem is finding new talent. And I think part of what Harlequin was trying to do, rather clumsily, was enact a model for which they could find and cultivate new talent. You guys
already do, Stacy. It's called the slush pile.
Yeah, there's more talent out there than most publishers can handle.
Yeah, but you can't sell from the slush pile.
Hold it off.
Sorry.
But I have to say that I disagree with the notion that MWA, RWA, and SIFLA would be up in arms if Harlequin had created a true self-publishing venue. I think that the big problem is that it's not self-publishing; it's vanity press. It's encouraging people to go this route, and the press would take a profit from it. It's not self-publishing. It's not something where the author gets to keep 100% of the profit. And the idea that a publisher like Harlequin would have to go to find new talent by looking at self-published books, I really hate to burst people's bubbles, but I think that that's unlikely at best, especially since those authors will be coming to Harlequin Horizons, a lot of them, because they've been rejected from Harlequin in the first place.
Well, it's a safety net,
by
though.
dangling this carrot that you could be, plucked from the depths of this, quote, self-publishing venue, unquote, to be published traditionally by Harlequin, I think that they've that's a lot of double talk.
Well, I definitely want to let my co-host kind of weigh in on this. I'd love to hear, Holly, your take on this.
I think I agree with everyone that it's misleading, and what really struck me was the prices were just absolutely outrageous. And I do feel that they're just playing on the name. I mean, if anything, they really are just showing that, they're a business. They're just trying to make more money. So from that perspective, you actually do see what they are trying to do. But I agree that they're definitely playing around with, these are hopes and dreams, and just kind of misleading people into believing that maybe if they do self-publish with Harlequin, that then maybe they'll have a chance then. Or maybe if they spend more money with Harlequin, they'll have a better chance at being picked up. I definitely do disagree with that. And I do agree with you that maybe if they had taken on the Lulu kind of print-on-demand thing, that would have gone over much more smoothly.
And I agree with you. I think the wording of the site and the packages offered implied that you could get picked up by Harlequin proper if your book sells well enough. And the way to make it sell well enough is to pay a lot more money for all these special marketing packages and a $20,000 book trailer and this, that, and the other thing.
Right. I definitely do like that they're acknowledging that there is a market for self-publishing. I do like that because I'm a self-published author. So I do like that they're acknowledging there is another world. You know what I mean? I do like that, but I definitely think that it's a delicate thing, and that this is something that's maybe someone's savings. But I guess that these are desperate economic times here, and they're just doing whatever they can to make a buck.
At the sake of being the lone person, sort of taking up a position that they've already kind of hung up on themselves. I don't know that it's necessarily desperate economic times. I just think that the cultural landscape has shifted, folks. We live in a Web 2.0 do-it-yourself culture, and the kids under the age of 25 get that. They don't get this traditional elite sort of a hand-picked selection of authors. They just don't get it. That's not how they download music. And so I think what Harlequin was trying to do, again, rather clumsily by charging people money, was they saw that the landscape has changed. You gave Jackie on your blog an excellent statistic, something about the number of books sold that were self-published in 2008 being greater than the number of books that were sold from traditional publishers. And I think that the landscape has changed in a great and significant way. And if Harlequin doesn't do it, somebody else is going to do it because it's money to be made. And it's what people under the age of 25 accept as a standard business model now.
And that's my wonder here is, was it done, if you like, purely out of greed, to be sort of malicious about it, or was it the fact that they're seeing the marketplace change, they're seeing shrinking sales at the bookstore, at a physical bookstore, and they're like saying, well, we're going to have to look at this in a different way and try and pick up on something. And it's hard to tell what it is because I suppose the money elements muddied it now, and it's going to be hard for them to backtrack from that without it looking seedy. And again, you've got that lack of transparency. But it does make me wonder what was the motivation to do this. One of just, the toughness of the book market opposed to trying to survive or trying to be greedy about it.
Well, I think at the core of this discussion, that we're talking about here is a major publisher supposed to be making money from selling books to readers, or making money by selling the opportunity to be published to writers? And I think that is at the core of what we're really talking about here. I do want to bring Elisa Lorello into the conversation. It looks like she has joined us. Elisa, tell us a little bit about your books, your road to publication, and any opinions that you have on this whole Harlequin Horizons controversy.
Hey, Stacy. Thanks for having me on. I also have taken the independent publishing route. My two books are Faking It, and I just released the sequel to faking it called Ordinary World. And I've released it first on Kindle, and it's going to be on paperback later next week. And I've also used the print-on-demand Lulu.com company. I've been listening to what others have to say, and I've been following this debate for the last couple of days. And there were a couple of things that struck me. One of them is actually, it's a quote that my brother had given me. I had asked him a couple of questions about the change in the music business, and I know there are always so many parallels to what the music industry has done and what's happening in the publishing industry. And one of the things, that he said is record companies are still trying to figure out how to make money when so many people share music for free. New business structures are constantly evolving. Companies are now making use of free downloading for promotion and publicity. And here's what really struck me is he said they are trying to respond to a way of life that doesn't seem to be controllable. And it seems to me that that's kind of what's happening right now, is that what's happening in and I'm not talking about I'm not talking about vanity press, but I'm talking about what's been happening in independent publishing and self-publishing and companies like Lulu and CreateSpace, is that the people are kind of taking over, and it's not so much that the traditional publishing companies or the corporations are dictating as much about what's getting out to the public as much as now we have all these different channels. You're seeing so many book review blogs and even, shows like this that you have, Stacy, that are really now there are so many different channels that are opening up that are finding out about what else is out there. And people are looking for those things, and they're finding new ways to get it. And I think that's what's frustrating the publishing companies, just the way it's been frustrating the record companies.
I think that's some great points.
Technology's overtaking them.
I do want to bring in, it looks like we finally have, or we had, oh shit, it looks like he hung up. We had Paul Clayton on the line. Maybe he'll call back in a minute or two.
No, I'm here.
Are you here? Oh yes, Paul Clayton is with us. Tell us a little bit about your book, Paul.
Okay. Good evening to everybody. Great to be here. My book that's just showing up now on the internet and soon in paperback is called White Seed: The Untold Story of the Lost Colony of Roanoke.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's that's exactly what it is. It's actually a historical novel. At the very bottom of the book, it says a novel by Paul Clayton. But what I've done is I've done my research, and I essentially fictionalize what we know about John White, who was the governor who essentially dropped everybody off at Roanoke and then went back to England to ensure their timely resupply. So we have his writings and the writings of other historical figures about what he went through, and then I've created, fiction of essentially what. There are a couple theories as to what happened, and I've used them, and I've used some stories of about what happened at the Jamestown settlement, which was about 20 years later, and that's what I based the book on.
And now your first novel is it Carl Melcher Went to Vietnam?
Well, that's not my first novel. That was actually my last. Well, that was the first book that I ever wrote, but that was not the first book that I published. I published Carl Melcher in ebook form in 2000, in the year 2000, late 2000. Actually, excuse me, that was 2001. And in October of 2001, just 30 days roughly after 9/11, it was nominated. It was named a finalist at the Frankfurt eBook Awards, and it took me 3 more years to find a publisher, and it was finally published in hardcover in 2004 by Thomas Dunn, SMP. But the first novel that I ever published was called Calling Crow, originally titled by myself as Cacique. But anyway, publishers, when you're a new writer, they pick whatever title they want, and that was published in 1995.
And now you had a long road to publication. Is that true?
Yeah, and I have a little website called www.carlmelcher.com, and on that website I have a tab that says the story of this book, and that's essentially what it is. And for all the writers that are out there that might be listening in, it was a long time. I started writing this book probably in 1977, maybe a year out of college, and I never gave up, but obviously it took a long time, and I had some really interesting helpers along the way. If I could just tell a real quick story.
Please do.
Okay. I joined the James Jones Literary Society probably about 1997-98. One of the reasons I joined was because they had a novel. They sponsored a novel contest. However, I didn't realize that you couldn't be published and enter, and I thought my book would have been perfect for that because I'm a great fan of James Jones. At any rate, I joined the James Jones Literary Novel Society, and through that, I managed to contact Willie Morris, the gentleman that wrote James Jones, A Friendship, and he's most famous for a book called, it's about the dog, My Dog Skip. He wrote a lot of really serious books. I think he was the editor for one of the literary magazines. It could have been the Atlantic Monthly, or I can't recall. However, I managed to get Willie Morris to read my manuscript. That would have been about 1996, and he liked it. And he said he called me up one day. I almost fell out of my chair, and in this real wonderful Southern accent, and said he liked it and he was going to help me find a publisher. He sent it to one publishing house. They rejected it. I got a letter back from him. He said, well, I got a lot of other folks I can try. We'll see what we can do. And then about a week later, he had a heart attack and died. So I really appreciate what he tried to do for me. And at that point, I was sort of on my own again. And eventually what I did was I just grew really frustrated, and I guess it was like, I don't know, maybe 2002 or something. I published it in Pod, and I was kind of, I was happy about that. I mean, at least finally the book was available in paperback, and I was trying to find people to perhaps write a blurb for it or whatever, and I just happened to stumble on the website of a gentleman named Colonel David Hackworth, and he's a decorated, or he was a decorated soldier from Vietnam, and at that time he was appearing on news shows and everything as some sort of like a military consultant. At any rate, I sent him an email asking him if he would read the book and perhaps a blurb the back, give me a blurb for the back, and he just said, no time. Contact my agent. I contacted his agent, and he said, okay, well, just based on what the hack says, send me the book. And so I sent him the book, and it was a Pod, a copy of the book I sent him, and about 3 weeks later he found a publisher for it.
That's an amazing story. At St. Martin's Press. That is an amazing story.
Right. Yeah, that was great.
Well, I do want to remind folks who are watching, you are watching Book Chatter. We have just an outstanding panel of authors with us. I'm going to thank all of them, and I want to keep this conversation going for a while because I know we've got a bunch of folks watching. If you are watching Book Chatter and you have the time to head over to Twitter and tweet that you are watching the show, it would be an awesome thing for us and for our authors here to grow this audience even greater than what we already have tonight. So please do go to Twitter, tweet that you are watching Book Chatter. Feel free to post the URL and get some more folks over here for our authors tonight. Well, we have a lot of aspiring writers and published writers probably as well in the audience tonight. And so what I'd like to do is do kind of a round table and talk a little bit about what a lot of aspiring writers want to hear, and that is how you got your agent, and tell us a little bit about your very first book deal. So Jackie, why don't you get us started with that?
Sure. The first book that I sold, Hell Cells, was actually not the first book that I wrote. The first book that I wrote, my great American novel, my GAN, the love of my life that I've been working on since, 1988, I wound up scoring triple-digit rejection letters. And after a long time, I finally realized, I'm not quite ready for prime time. And I finally set that aside in early 2005. And then I wrote another book, and that one, instead of, the better part of 20 years, that one took me 5 months. So my timing was getting a little bit better. That also got rejected. I got about 40 rejection letters, but all of them pretty much said the same thing, that they loved the voice that I used for the second book, which was in a completely different style than that first failed book. So for the third book, I decided to take the elements of magic and the supernatural that were in the first book that I absolutely loved, and combine that with the voice, the kind of snarky, sassy narrator, first-person narrator from the second book, and I put that together, and I wrote Hell Cells. And I wrote that in 8 weeks, and because I was just really feeling the story, and I got very lucky that I wound up, I queried, and I wound up getting 5 offers of representation within a couple of weeks, and after I selected my agent, he puts the book on submission the following day, and within a week we got a preemptive offer for a 3-book deal.
What an awesome story.
Thank you.
Stacia, why don't you tell us a little bit about your getting an agent and your first book being published and what that experience was like?
I had been writing erotic romance and e-publishing for a little while, for about 2 years, I guess, kind of off and on. And I love the genre, but I kind of started to feel like my voice and the kinds of stories I wanted to tell weren't really right for it. So I wrote my first urban fantasy, which was a romantic urban fantasy. And I found out about the Juno imprint of Wildside Press, because this is before Simon & Schuster acquired the Juno imprint. And I sent it to them, and they took it. And that was really great, and I did that on my own. And as I was writing the second Demons book, I had the idea for Unholy Ghosts, and I just, totally loved it. I was totally obsessed with it. And I started writing it the day that I finished Demon Inside. I finished it in about 8 weeks. And, gave it a couple of months for editing and stuff like that. And basically I queried my agent on a Monday. 3 hours later, he requested the full manuscript, and 2 days later, he called me to offer representation, which I accepted because I just liked him and felt really comfortable with him. I had a few other pulls out, and technically I was supposed to give them a shot too, but I didn't. So, sorry guys.
When it's right, it's right.
Yeah, that was kind of how I felt, was, this is like, dream agent time, and, we did a couple of rounds of edits, and we got a couple of offers about 6 weeks after he started submitting. And we eventually sold 3 books to Del Rey. My acquiring editor was Liz Shire, who I adored. She was let go at Random House when they made some cutbacks late last year or early this year. I don't remember exactly when it was. But luckily I got assigned to Shauna Summers, who I also adore and who also loves the books, and it's all very exciting, and there you go.
Well, it couldn't have happened to a more deserving person. Simon, tell us a little bit of a story about your road to publication.
I'll do it slightly differently. I basically started through independent presses, small presses who were printing maybe a couple of thousand copies, but the way I actually got my New York contract was I got my agent last. I actually sold 6 books direct to various editors, and the way I managed to get my first New York contract was to actually meet the editor face to face. I knew he was going to be at a hotel for a conference, and I asked the secretary if I could just have 5 minutes, just 5 minutes to talk. And so I basically did the American Idol thing in a hotel room. And I just sort of basically gave him a movie pitch of what the book was about. I'd spoken to an editor, and I did it to him and said to him, you know, how does this sound? And he goes, oh, well, I think you should. He goes, I'm bored. And we just basically worked out something that I should say. I went in there, I did the thing, and I must admit, the editor who I was pitching to had a really good poker face, because I thought, this is just going down in flames. And at the end of it, he said, can I see it all? And your press clippings? And I went, yes. And I did the usual thing, what they usually say. I had it all on just one page, everything about me, the book, the world. But then he said, you know, can I have the manuscript? And I had a disc, and I had the actual manuscript with me. I said, paper or plastic. and just, you know, and it just sort of like got me remembered. And I actually had a phone call 3 days later saying, we want to offer you a deal. But it was just taking that one chance. I suppose the moral of the story is that there is no wrong way. It's like, if you want to get published and you really mean it, you'll find a way to get in through the bathroom window if the front door's locked.
Not that we advocate stalking editors or agents.
No.
No, but it was just the opportunity was there.
Yes.
Right.
Well, can you talk, Simon, a little?
The thing is, those opportunities are great, but the manuscript has to be able to back it up.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I don't mean to put you down, Simon. That's not the way I mean it. I just mean that, you know, you had an awesome.
Oh no, but there's the whole thing of it's so easy. I mean, it's such a subjective business. Mm-hmm. I imagine if I'd caught him on a different day, it may have not gone that way. But you know, it's now 4 books later, sort of thing. But you know, it was just one of those things that I must have done something that appealed to him on that day, and it worked. But maybe it was a combination of things. But sometimes when it works for you, it works for you. Well, let's hope so.
Well, I do want to remind folks who are watching that we have some outstanding authors with us. You should go to Amazon or your local independent bookstore website and find out about their books. As you can see their names on the screen, Simon Wood has just been talking a little bit about his road to publication. We also have a fabulous author with us, Jackie Kessler. In addition to Jackie, we have Stacia Kane. Paul Clayton is on the line. Elisa Lorello. R.J. Keller is with us, and Holly Christine has recently moved over to the instant message chat where we have a very lively discussion going on. I want to let folks know that you can join in the instant message chat with the authors and with the folks there. Also, if you have a Twitter account, go tweet that you are watching Book Chatter. Let's get some folks watching the show. We have almost 50 folks with us. We've had about 150 with us throughout the past 45 minutes or so. So let's talk a little bit about ebooks and digital.
Am I supposed to be on the instant message chat?
Well, you can be. People were making fun of you there, so.
Were they really?
I'm kidding.
No, that happens to me all the time.
We have Jay Wells joining us. Author Jay Wells. Do you guys, do you know Jay's work?
Now, I know Jay was making fun of me.
Yeah, she's joining us.
No.
Got a bunch of great authors with us here. So let's talk a little bit about ebooks, digital publishing, Amazon Kindle, the future of publishing. As I think you guys might disagree with that. I'm sure you do. We can respectfully disagree. So Simon, tell us a little bit about your motivation to get your books on ebook. It sounds like you are self-publishing those on ebook. So what's up there?
Basically, what it was is I suppose I've been a little bit slow, and I've had books that are basically sold out their print run, and they're not going for a second printing or whatever, because they were maybe done with an independent press or something. But also some of the non-fiction stuff that I've written for Writer's Digest, which they no longer have any claim on, which is basically sitting on my hard drive. And so recently I decided that there's still a readership for all this stuff, and I still keep being asked, but there's not been enough to warrant maybe another 2,000 copies being printed or something. So I've been, releasing them as ebooks after they've done their thing in the bookshop.
And have you seen much of a response to the ebooks from your readers?
I think it's been a little bit slow, but I think it's only because some of this stuff's only been on there a few days, and I've not done all my notifications yet. But I think in the next few months, time will tell as to what the response is. But the thing about doing the e-publishing is that it's not costing me anything. It's not damaging anything. It's not creating inventory for anybody. So if it sells 1 or 1 million copies, it really doesn't change the ecosystem in any great way of the publishing world. So for me, there's no real downside to it.
Now, we have Elisa Lorello with us, whose books, Faking It and Ordinary World, were self-published as ebooks and have taken off recently. They've been hitting bestseller lists. I think they reached as high as 200 or 300 overall on Kindle out of some 161. There you go, out of some 350,000 books. And so, Elisa, I kind of want to put you on the spot a little bit and have you talk about that within the context of the fact that those novels were rejected by dozens of folks. People were telling you, just like Jackie was saying, that you need to go back and work on your craft, and yet you're writing these books, self-publishing them now, and they're finding an audience that loves them. How do you account for that?
Well, for one thing, I knew that I had an audience for it. I never lost confidence with that. And the feedback that I got from agents, nobody, in terms of, I got rejections, but nobody said this is bad. I got quite a bit of feedback from agents, and a lot of them were saying, this is good, but, and then they were giving me some suggestions in terms of ways to like you said, to hone it a bit, because especially with Faking It, it was the very first novel I had ever done, and I had no idea, because I had never seen myself as a fiction writer or a novelist before. So when I had this manuscript, I didn't know the first thing about what to do in terms of finding an agent, and it was kind of feeling my way through that process. So I had a lot of people telling me this is not for me, or at this particular stage it's not something that I'm going to do. But I was getting just as much feedback saying, but this is very good. Your characters are very strong. You've got a great story. Your pacing is great. And all other kinds of feedback. So I was very confident that there was an audience there. I was confident that it was good, that it could do something. So my decision to self-publish was kind of saying, well, I don't want to go back and send out another whole batch of query letters saying, oh, well, guess what? I fixed it now, or it's even better than the last time you saw it. I kind of felt like I ran the table with that, and I never queried for Ordinary World. Actually, this was just all for Faking It. And so when I self-published and through Lulu, and I started to get my name out, and I did a blog tour, I did readings, I have it in 3 independent bookstores in 3 different states, and traveled to each of those and did promotion. And obviously, everybody's using the social networking. So I was on Facebook, I was on Twitter, I have my own blog. So that started to get the word out. When I got it on Kindle, that's when it really took off, because, well, for one thing, I have it priced, a price you just can't resist. And I did that deliberately so that people would say, well, this is a very low investment risk. If I don't like it, I'm just out $1. and that's it. But what happened was that's where I really started to get my name out, and people were responding. And especially just in the last 2 weeks, I've gotten a lot of emails and letters from people I've never met before from all over the country who are saying, I really, thank you for writing these books, or I really connected to these characters, or your writing is great, please let me know when the next book comes out, and things like that. So I can't say that it was just one thing that happened. It was just a combination of things that were, that happened all at once. And it was just, I just never gave up on the idea that this was a good story, and that this was something that there was an audience out there, and it was just a matter of the two of us finding each other.
Well, that's
hopefully more than two.
Yeah. And Elisa, I think you epitomize in my mind the kind of person, and I've seen so many of them in the past year or two, who publishers said, well, your work's just not quite right, it doesn't work right, something just doesn't work, and yet you take that book, self-publish it, and it becomes a bestseller. And it's, if it was only one or two people, I would say, well, maybe there's just, a couple people getting missed by the publishing industry, but it isn't. I have seen literally dozens and dozens of authors in the past year or two who have been rejected and have turned around and self-published their books that have become, if not bestsellers, are selling regularly, and they're finding a readership that way. I
think that sort of comes back down to it being a very subjective business.
Yeah.
One thing is, I think I've had like 7 books published. 2 of them were rejected previously by the editors who later bought them, and they didn't realize it, and I've never told them.
What a story.
It just sort of comes down to, like, literally on a Monday, if they had a bad commute into work, and they see your thing, and it deals with bad traffic on page 1, they're probably going to throw it away. But, if they catch it on another day, it just seems to be,
I teach student writing, and I've even made comments on somebody's draft and say, have you thought about doing it this way? And then 2 drafts later, they turn it back to me, and I say, have you thought about doing it this way? And what I suggested is what they originally had, and I didn't even realize that I had, for whatever reason, the first time I didn't like it, and the second time I said, oh, that would really work there. So it is. I think it's the subjectivity of every reader.
The thing to keep in mind is that traditional publishers have an entire sales and marketing department that have a seat at the acquisitions table. So you can have an editor who absolutely loves your book and wants to buy it. This actually happened to me and Caitlin. There was an editor who, she loved black and white, and she would have sold her right arm to buy it. But sales and marketing, they literally said, we don't know how to position this. We don't know how to sell this. And so because of that, she had to turn it down. And then she went and actually hand-sold it, if you will, to the editor who wound up buying it at another publishing house. But my point here is that, yes, it's subjective, but a lot of that has to do with whether or not marketing thinks that they can find their audience. And, yeah, there's going to be a lot more risk for a traditional publisher to go ahead and buy a book. And in this case, if you have a great book that is of a high quality, it's well-written, it's dynamic, and if a traditional publisher feels that they don't know how to market it, yeah, absolutely, that's a great opportunity. 90 seconds. To go e-publishing, to go self-publishing, because then you take that risk on yourself. But the key there is that it's a book of high quality, and that's something that you really get through trial and error.
I want to bring, if I can interrupt, I would like to bring Paul into this discussion, because Paul, you kind of represent, an author who persevered for a long time, and I God bless you. I hope your books are doing well now, and you definitely deserve to have them published with a publisher like St. Martin's. Did it ever cross your mind, to self-publish? Was that something that you ever seriously considered?
Not at the beginning, because, when I started writing, like a lot of people probably back then, I dreamed of the, the book contract and the publicity tour and possibly the movie deal and all that stuff. And it took a long time for those dreams to kind of fade and for reality to set in. But, I mean, I always wanted a traditional book deal, and I hung in there until I got it, but it wasn't for the first book that I had written. But I wanted to second what everybody was saying about, e-publishing or whatever, because the way I see it, it's almost like the gold rush or the new frontier now. I mean, see, I e-published Carl Melcher in 2001, and that was the last Frankfurt eBook Award. They just, shut it down after that because they figured, well, ebooks, they're not really going anywhere. But now things are really taking off. Now I'm over at Kindle. White Seat is at Kindle. I'm also on Smashwords, which is a wonderful place for writers because I think the gentleman's name is Mark Coker. He's got a program he calls the Meat Grinder. You submit your manuscript, you upload, and it ingests it and it spits it out in about 10 different ebook formats, and he's making all these deals to make your book available all over the globe. Anybody with an iPhone or a laptop can read your book, and of course the public or the readers will separate the wheat from the chaff. And I really believe in my writing. I mean, my book eventually found a home, or 4 of them have, and the book that I'm writing now, I'm back to that trailblazer way of doing things, and I'm e-publishing and I'm pod publishing, and I'm hoping that maybe some publisher or agent out there will take a look at this book, which is really fantastic. But even if they don't, I don't care. I know that this book is going to do well. So I think all the new writers out there young writers should persevere and have faith in their work, because that's the ticket. Never give up and just keep polishing your writing.
Well, there's a lot to be said for polishing your writing. Like Jackie said, some of your early work, some of our early work might not be quite marketable or polished enough, or the characters might not be good enough. The irony is it doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a readership for it. I know my suspense novel, Claws, has some flaws in it. I know the character isn't as sympathetic as she could have been. She's kind of a neutral Michael Crichton-esque type biologist. I know there are moments in the novel that's a little over the top, but that was what it intended to be. That's what I intended it to be, and some 3,000, 4,000 readers can't be wrong in the past couple of months. The reviews have been somewhat mixed, but there are a lot of people buying the books. So Jackie, let me ask you, as we're beginning to come down to the wire here at the end of the show, what are your thoughts on ebooks, and would you or have you considered bringing out any of your titles self-published as ebooks?
Well, actually, right now, all my titles are available as ebooks as well as paper books. That's part of what being published traditionally, from a traditional publisher, has given me. There are a number of options out there. You don't just have to buy a dead tree version. You can get the electronic version. I think that e-publishing, it's a terrific medium. It really, really is. And again, though, I need to stress that, yes, while you've got this great medium that allows more and more people to self-publish, please do take the time to make sure that your story, that your manuscript is the best possible story it can be. Take the time to hone your craft and have a critique partner read it. Have someone who's not your mom read it and help you strengthen your voice and your skills. And then if you want to choose to self-publish, absolutely go for it. Me, frankly, I like going the traditional publisher route and getting paid for my book up front and then collecting royalties on it. That works really well for me, and I'd like to keep going that route.
But now you're saying you have ebooks. Those are published through your traditional publisher, right?
That's right. That's right. all of the Hell books and Black and White and the couple of novellas that I have in anthologies. Those are all available as ebooks as well as hard copy books.
How about you, Stacia? Would you consider self-publishing any backlist titles or out-of-print titles if that should ever happen?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because, first, like I said, I did start out in e-publishing. So, I'm all for e-publishing, and that's actually the point that I was going to make earlier, is that, Harlequin has announced this e-publishing imprint, and I think it's a real shame that rather than pushing for the legitimacy of that and putting their power behind it, they wasted their power by hooking up with a vanity press. But no, I like e-publishing. Like Jackie, all of my books are available as ebooks. The Demons books are available as ebooks. The Downside books that will be released in the summer are available, or will be rather, available in all formats as ebooks. And just to insert, they will also be available in the UK and Australia from Harper Voyager, and they will be available as audiobooks from Blackstone Audio, and my agent just sold German rights. So I'm going to get a foreign language translation, which I am so excited about because I can't wait to see that.
I'm looking forward to that. I just sold my German rights, and the book comes out on January 1st, so it'd be nice to... I've seen the stuff in Japanese.
Yeah, have you gone on Babelfish yet and tried to figure out what your title's going to be?
Yes, I did. I found out they changed a 5-word title to 1 word, and I found out it was slang, a rip-off. But it's that thing,
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's that thing of what does that even mean?
The Hell books are going to be
totally
in Germany.
Congratulations, Jackie. But the funny thing is that I did last summer, not this last summer, but summer 2008, I did a very long series of posts on my blog about writing sex scenes. And the series is called Be a Sex Writing Strumpet. It ended up being 31 posts in all. It's 50,000 words. It's a huge, long, exhaustive, everything that I know and can guess at, and everything about writing sex scenes. And it's been really, really popular, and I still get a lot of emails, people asking if they can get it as a PDF or as a print copy, and I'm seriously considering taking it to Lulu, converting the file to a PDF, taking it to Lulu, letting, if people want to have a print copy, they can. And, I would probably do it at cost, or, maybe I'd make $1, put up a donate button or something like that. It's free on my blog. I wanted to expand it a little to do the deluxe edition. Or something like that, but no, I think that for something, self-publishing is a great idea. I just don't approve of vanity presses, especially not vanity presses in disguise. But yeah, I think I don't have a problem with self-publishing. I don't have a problem with e-publishing. So.
Very well said. That's definitely good food for thought. Well, we're coming down to our last couple of minutes here. I did want to touch on book marketing and a little bit about the craft. I don't know how much time we have or how much patience you guys have with this. We do have a pretty good audience for our program tonight. So what kinds of things for aspiring writers or folks who have maybe self-published a couple of books, what kinds of book marketing strategies have been most effective? Jackie, why don't you get us started?
Well, when you get your book published through a traditional publisher, there will be some marketing and promotion done for you. And I just have to say I'm very grateful for everything that all my publishers have done. That being said, I have also supported those efforts with efforts of my own, down to, having some things to hand out at conferences, always have a business card with you, having things that you can give away. Some people say that having swag is helpful. Some people say that giving things out like buttons and Post-it notepads really isn't helpful. It's hard to say, but I'm of the opinion that anything that gets your brand, your name out there and in people's minds is helpful. Just don't spend all of your time figuring out how to market your book when you should be spending a lot of your time writing an even better next book. I think that the most important things that any author can do is, number one, have a strong website. Number two, have a strong web presence. Be active on various discussion groups and various online organizations, and speak out and let people know who you are and share information and give your opinions on things. The third thing people can do is have a really strong local presence. Get to know who your local booksellers are. Get to know who your librarians are. Say hi and talk to these people who will hand sell you to readers who want to read your stuff. And these are the best people to really get to know. And the last thing an author can do is, like I said before, write an even better next book.
Great advice. I think you're absolutely right. We can always stand to get a little bit better at our craft and get better as human beings, hopefully, as well, in the process of discovering ourselves through our writing. Stacia, how about you? What kinds of marketing strategies, have you seen anything that had a direct correlation, like being on Book Chatter and then seeing that you sold 50 books the next day?
Well, this is my first time on Book Chatter, so I couldn't, I won't be able to answer that one until tomorrow.
I'm not making any guarantees.
Sorry?
I just said I'm not making any guarantees.
Okay. Honestly, I'm with Jackie in the extent that, I put a lot of time into my online presence and my web presence and things like that. And I like to do things like contests and giveaways. I mean, I give away my ebooks, like, all the time, like, just on a whim, because it's fun. So, that sort of thing, I do like doing that, but I really do believe that what sells your book is that it's a good book, and word of mouth. And, when Personal Demons came out, I mean, it was a small press book. It didn't have a huge print run. I was living in England at the time, and I didn't have, I wasn't really able, I couldn't do signings, I couldn't do, things like this. But the book sold very, very well, and I think the reason why it did, and I don't mean to toot my own horn here because I'm still stunned by it all, is that for whatever reason, people really liked the book.
It's a damn good book.
Well, thank you, but I mean, I look at it now. You always look back on the books that you wrote a while ago and think, oh God, my new stuff is so much better. Which it is. Unholy Ghost is awesome. Go buy it. But anyway, I think that's really what sold it, is that, a reviewer got hold of it and, wrote about it and loved it, and somebody bought it on that recommendation and they loved it and they wrote about it, and it just sort of spread from there. And I started getting, emails and Google alerts and stuff that people just really, really liked it. And I think that's why it sold, and like I said, I guess I can take some credit for that because I wrote it, but I don't really look at it that way. I still can't believe how positive the response was, and to me, that's really what did it, because I couldn't put a lot of money into promo, but people, it just word of mouth sold it. So, I'm kind of on the fence about that. I definitely agree. I think word of mouth
is, we would probably all agree, is the single biggest thing that'll sell an unknown author's books. I've seen a few things. Certainly, the reviews on Amazon with my own books that's a kind of word of mouth. Doing stuff like this show and just being very active. I did a blog tour this past summer for 45 days, which it was a self-starting kind of buzz. Can you point to anything specifically, Stacia, that generated that word of mouth? Other than, of course, you have a great novel. It's cool. It's hip. It's just very well told. But can you point to anything specifically that might have generated word of mouth buzz?
Really, aside from
20 in every book that you give out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have some plans for Unholy Ghost release. I'm going to put up the first chapter of book 2 on a password protected page on my website. And if you bought the first book, you get a sneak peek at, the beginning of book 2. And, I have some things to do, like giveaways for and things like that, and some plans. But really, I think it came down to the fact that, I had a very active web presence, and, for whatever reason, people really liked the book. And, because it didn't have like a big debut week. It didn't have a huge sales week ever. It just sold steadily. Every week we were seeing, roughly the same amount of copies.
How about
but
things...
They were selling every week for months the same amount of copies.
How about things like social networking sites? I know you're active on Twitter. You have a huge following there. How does that affect, awareness of you online?
Well, I hope it does. I mean, I hope that people are interested in me and what I have to say, and that they check out the site. And I post the first chapters of the books on the site, and I hope that they look at that and they look at the reviews and the blurbs. I mean, Anna Geary called Unholy Ghost the ultimate Bible of badassery, which is my favorite blurb ever in the world. And Charlene Harris read it, and she called one of my characters one of her favorite secondary characters ever in a novel. But to me, I do that stuff because it's fun. I don't do it with the intent to sell books, and I think maybe that's why it works. If it does, is because I'm not always saying buy my books, buy my books, buy my books. I'm talking about myself and things in my life and interacting with people, and
you're interested in them.
And does it sound egotistical to say maybe people kind of like me, and so they check out my books? I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like a likable person, but what the hell do I know?
Oh, we love you. We love you. So
Thank you.
Let's toss it over to Paul and Elisa. Paul, what kinds of things? Is Paul still with us first?
Yeah. Oh, I'm here.
Okay. What kinds of things?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We're talking about book marketing. What kinds of things
Right.
have you seen that work?
Okay, well, I would say hopefully your other work will help sell your new work. I want to second what everyone has said about putting your best foot forward. Make sure that your manuscript is really ready for the biggest publisher on Fifth Avenue before you you e-publish it. We don't want to have an instance of premature e-publication. And I know a few people that have done that, and it's really sad. I mean, they're in such a hurry. I'm trying to get the web presence up, and I've also sent my book to a few of these big Amazon reviewers that are way up in the ranks there. And, just make friends online in the book community, and hopefully, as others have said, if you've written, a good book, the word will get out. I mean, it may be slow and steady, but slow and steady wins the race.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. How about Elisa? Elisa is, for folks who are watching, Elisa Lorello is the author of Faking It and Ordinary World, both of which were self-published but have very recently taken off and become just huge bestsellers on Amazon Kindle. What kinds of things have you done, Elisa, that you would repeat with a new novel? What kinds of things would you give advice on?
I have to kind of say ditto to what's already been said. One thing that's worked really, that's been also really wonderful for me in this whole experience is it's the things that I've done where it's not about, and one of the other panelists said, it was when I wasn't talking about the book that people got interested. When I'm on Facebook or something like that, and I'm talking and I'm participating in other discussions and other discussion forums, then people get to know me.
and then they get interested in my book or in my work, and then they pick it up and then they start reading it, and then they go back and say, by the way, I read Elisa's book, and that's kind of caught on. All my Aaron Sorkin friends, they know that I have to acknowledge them all, because this is one of the discussion forums that I belong to on Facebook. It's a wonderful, wonderful group of people, and I, this is not my forum. This is for, the adulation goes to Aaron Sorkin, but we've all gotten to know each other on there. And so by getting to know me, and a couple of people were saying, well, what do you do? And then telling them, or my telling, Aaron Sorkin, hey, your writing influences my writing. And so a lot of people from that forum started to buy the book. And then they went back on that forum and said, by the way, I read Elisa's book. It's really good. You have to read it. And so that generated a buzz. And I really don't talk about the book. I don't plug any of the book. I don't plug guest appearances or anything that I'm doing. I mean, that forum is there for our enjoyment to talk about other things. But that's one of the happy little accidents that came out of that. And I wasn't looking for that. That was the last thing I was expecting to come out of it. I did not go there to sell books. Even better than that is the friendships that I've made from that, and they pass on the word for me. So that's and so I recommend that for writers. Not, sometimes you got to back off a little bit, and you can't just make it all about tweeting about your book every single day or every single hour, or because then people start to get a little bit sick of that. But definitely when you're having a good day or you're having a good week, tweet about that. I mean, I was thrilled when I was seeing Faking It climbing in the Amazon charts. I mean, like I said, it charted up to 161 in the Kindle store, and it hit #1 in a couple of the special categories, and I was just beside myself. So
that's so cool. Yeah.
So thank you. So I was talking about that more out of excitement than anything else. So those things worked for me. And also, I think it's important. Don't just rely on the web presence, but you have to make yourself a personal presence too. And again, what others said about if you're an indie author, go into your indie bookstores. The local bookstores are very supportive, very, very supportive. And make yourself a presence there, and attend other people's readings, and get to know other authors. Get yourself involved in other networks where it's not just all about you, but it's supporting what others are doing. I buy a lot, I buy the authors that I meet, I buy their books, and then I go on my blog and I talk about their books. And so it's really about reaching out to other people and not making it all about me, all about me, all about me.
Well,
so that's something that's been really good for me.
I agree. One of the things that I love doing, if you can't tell, is I love giving other people a stage to speak. I love giving other people an opportunity to have their voices heard. And, that kind of thing I think goes a long ways. Well, we are just about out of time. I know...
Simon hasn't said what promo he does.
Simon, unfortunately, got disconnected. He was chatting on the instant message chat. I think he might still be with us over there on the instant message chat, but Simon is no longer with us. So Simon has left the building. He's working on... Oh, he's still here. I see him from the instant message chat. He says, I'm still here. Well, this has been...
Hi, Simon. We miss you.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, this has been such an absolutely wonderful discussion. I really want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for being on the show tonight. For anybody who's still watching, we have had, believe it or not, 184 different visitors in the past hour and 20 minutes or so. So we've had a pretty good night here tonight on Book Chatter. The authors have been Stacia Kane, who is the author of the Megan Chase series as well as the Chess Putnam series. Books in the Megan Chase series include Personal Demons, Demon Inside, and Demon Possessed. Books in the Chess Putnam series include Unholy Ghosts, Unholy Magic, and City of Ghosts. A few of those are currently available. A few of them are going to be coming out soon. So check out her website. That's author Stacia Kane. We've also had Simon Wood on the show. Simon is the author of Accidents Waiting to Happen, Working Stiffs, Paying the Piper, and We All Fall Down. I've known Simon a long time. He was gracious enough to blurb one of my early self-published novels about 4 or 5 years ago. So I want to thank Simon for being on the show. Again, his books are Accidents Waiting to Happen, Working Stiffs, Paying the Piper, and We All Fall Down. In addition to Simon and Stacia, we had Elisa Lorello on the program. Elisa is the author of Faking It and Ordinary World, which have been tearing up the Amazon Kindle charts. Check them out at Amazon, Faking It and Ordinary World. Also, I'm very happy to finally have had Paul Clayton on the show. I know we had a couple of technical difficulties in the past few weeks trying to get you on. It's a thrill to have you on the show. One of Paul's novels is Carl Melcher Goes to Vietnam. Check it out. It's published, I think, through St. Martin's Press. Is that right, Paul?
Yes, sir, and it's also on Kindle and Smashwords.
And tell me your other books. I don't have them written down here. I should. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's okay. My newest is called White Seed, The Untold Story of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. And my series, my first series, historical series, is Calling Crow, Flight of the Crow, and Calling Crow Nation. There you go.
So check them out by Paul Clayton at Amazon or your local bookseller. Also, we had R.J. Keller on the show. I think R.J. may still be with us, although we haven't heard from her in a little while. She is the author of Waiting for Spring. Thank you very much, R.J., for being on the show. Holly was with us as well. Holly Christine, who is the author of The 9 Lives of Clemenza, as well as Retail Ready. And certainly not least, but last that we have here, Jackie Kessler. I just want to thank from the bottom of my heart for being on the show. I know we have some slight disagreements, but hopefully they're respectfully, we can respect one another and sort of disagree on some points. Jackie Kessler is the author of The Road to Hell, Black and White, A Hell of a Time, Hell is Where the Heart Is, When Hell Comes Calling, Hell's Bells, Hotter Than Hell. So if you type in hell, you're going to find Jackie Kessler's name. Again, that's Jackie Kessler.
You will find Jackie if you type in awesome, too, but I'm not sure if that's come up or not.
I believe it. Well, thank you all very much for being on the show. I'll try to keep the instant message chat going a little while longer here. But for all of us here at Book Chatter, I want to thank our guests especially, and most especially I want to thank all of you in the audience for watching. We do have an interview lined up. It happened during this show. I'm going to have Jay Wells on the show sometime in the next week or two, so stay tuned for that. Thank you all, and everybody have a great weekend. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Y'all have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
So there you have it, folks. It's another episode of Book Chatter, up and down. Just a wonderful discussion. I do want to thank our authors for being on the show tonight. I'm going to keep the live chat going a little while longer here. I know we've got about 20, it looks like about 26 folks who are still with us. So I don't want to shut that down right away. And it seems like last week whenever I shut down the show, it shut down the chat room. It is getting a little bit late, and I have a 3-year-old who's probably going to be up at the crack of dawn tomorrow morning, so I should probably be getting towards or heading towards bed pretty soon. Thank you all for tuning in. You guys have a great weekend, and go check out some of these books. Check them out. We had Simon Wood, Jackie Kessler, Stacia Kane, Paul Clayton, Elisa Lorello, and of course my co-host Holly Christine and R.J. Keller with us. You can find their books at Amazon.com. Of course, you can Google them as well. You guys have a great weekend. I'm going to be sticking around here a little bit longer. I'm going to go refill my drink, see how Sam's doing. Take care. Need some closing credits music or something. Wow, we have had 198 folks pop in and out of here, or at least 198 visitors on Book Chatter. Just a really great show tonight. Let me see if I can find some music for everybody. So it sounds like we might be able to have author Jay Wells on the program with us. Jay is an outstanding author and a friend of a friend, so hopefully we can have her on sometime in our next week or two. If you know any authors, or if you want to recommend yourself or other authors to have on the show, feel free to send me an email. My email address is Stacy, S-T-A-C-E-Y, at stacycochran.com, or you can just visit my website and message me through the website. We're always looking for good author guests to have on the program, so if you have any recommendations, feel free to send them my way via email or through my website, stacycochran.com. Here's some music. So who is still with us? It looks like we have a few people who either didn't turn off their computers or have tuned in a little late here. Sounds like we have a few people. Let me get some nighttime music going here on Book Chatter. You are watching the Post Book Chatter show. I am your Post Book Chatter host, Stacy Cochran. What you guys want to listen to? Let me put some music on here. How about a rooster call? A growling animal. Dogs barking. A dinosaur growl. Oh, I'm having too much fun. I gotta go to sleep. It's getting late. Here's some late nighttime music.
Mm.